The December wind carried a sharp bite as the Lutz family arrived at 112 Ocean Avenue, their breath visible in the air as they stepped onto the driveway. The Dutch colonial stood stoically beneath the gray Long Island sky, its distinctive quarter-moon windows giving the eerie impression of watchful eyes. To George and Kathy Lutz, it was more than a house, it was a fresh start. George, a sturdy man with a carpenter's callous hands, had recently married Kathy, a widowed mother of 3. With their savings, they had secured the sprawling property at a shockingly low price. The real estate agent was a front. The house had a tragic past. 13 months earlier, Ronald DeFeo Jr. had slaughtered his entire family in their sleep. Parents, 2 sisters, and 2 brothers, each shot execution style. Yet, George and Kathy, pragmatic and hopeful, dismissed the story as just that, a story. They saw beauty in the bones of the house, promise in its space. At first, the home seemed inviting. Their children, Daniel, Christopher, and Melissa, raced through the halls with delight, and Kathy admired the antique charm of the wooden staircase and stone fireplace. George unpacked boxes with quiet optimism, muttering about how everything was finally coming together. But within the first few nights, something shifted. George began waking every night at exactly 3:15 a.m., the alleged time of the DeFeo murders. He would find himself drawn to the boathouse out back, staring at the water, unable to explain why. The cold was relentless, even with the furnace roaring. He chopped wood constantly, obsessed with keeping the house warm, though Kathy noticed it was never enough. Kathy's cheerful demeanor started to fade. She began to feel watched, especially when alone in the kitchen or brushing her hair before bed. Once, while tucking Melissa in, she swore she saw a shadow pass across the doorway, but when she turned, nothing was there. The children change. 2. Daniel became withdrawn, prone to angry outbursts that didn't match his usual temperament. Melissa spoke to an imaginary friend, named Jody, described as a pig with glowing red eyes. When asked about Jody, she said calmly, "She watches from the window upstairs." George dismissed the incidents as adjustment stress, but a weight hung over the house. Doors opened without reason. Objects moved. A crucifix in the living room rotated on the wall. The family's dog growled at corners and refused to enter certain rooms. It wasn't just fear, it was decay. George's mood darkened by the day. He grew irritable, distant. Kathy watched as the man she loved became a stranger. Still, they stayed. They made excuses, telling themselves it was just a rough transition, a coincidence, a trick of the mind. But beneath their rationalizations, a quiet terror took root. The house didn't just have a past, it had a presence. And whatever it was, it had only just begun to wake. The hauntings intensify. By the second week, the house no longer whispered, it screamed. George Lutz, once rational and composed, had become gaunt and erratic. The firewood he chopped in obsessive bursts lay stacked in unburned piles, as if the cold were no longer physical but spiritual. He paced the halls at night, his eyes sunken, voice low, muttering about something in the walls. Even the children had grown uneasy around him. He was there, yet distant, as though part of him had already surrendered to the house. Kathy tried to hold everything together. She prepared meals no one touched. She cleaned rooms that were clean. But it wasn't just the family unraveling, it was reality. Late one night, she awoke to the sheets ripped from her bed and deep, invisible scratches across her legs. Another time, while bathing, she felt unseen fingers on her back, cool, deliberate. Her scream echoed, but no one came. Melissa's. One evening, while eating dinner, the chandelier above them began to sway violently, though no wind stirred. The walls trembled, the floor moaned. The family sat frozen, too afraid to speak, until the motion stopped abruptly, as if whatever force had been toying with them had lost interest, for the moment. George began keeping a journal. He scribbled erratic notes about time loops, the DeFeo family, and a black shadow in the basement. Kathy read it in secret, her hands trembling. Their smiles vanished. Their voices dropped to whispers. The house had become a predator, and they, its prey. And then, one night, On the 28th day, the house gave them one final warning. What happened that night would never leave them, and it would never let them forget. The truth behind the tale. When the Lutz family fled 112 Ocean Avenue on the 28th night, they left behind more than furniture. They abandoned their clothes, food, toys, everything. Their silence afterward only deepened the mystery. They refused to return, even to collect their belongings. Something had driven them out. But what? In the weeks that followed, the story spread like wildfire. Newspapers seized the tale of a family tormented by unseen forces, linking it to the DeFeo murders that still loomed over Amityville like a curse. The press wanted answers. Paranormal investigators wanted access. And skeptics wanted the truth. Among the first to enter the abandoned house were Ed and Lorraine Warren, famed demonologists known for cases like Annabelle and the Perron family. Lorraine would later say that she sensed a presence so dark, so overwhelming. She had to leave the house immediately. The Warrens claimed the house was built over a Native American burial ground and had become a gateway for malevolent spirits. But not everyone believed them. Stephen Kaplan, a parapsychologist and vocal critic of sensationalism in ghost hunting, labeled the Lutz story a fabrication. He pointed to the sudden book deal, the media attention, and the inconsistencies in the family's timeline. If there were such powerful forces in that house, he argued, critics questioned how a family so traumatized could negotiate contracts and attend premieres. Defenders argued they were simply trying to share their warning and survive. George Lutz insisted until his death that the events were real, though he admitted to embellishments added by the author. He claimed the core story, the fear, the oppression, the hauntings, was true. Still, the facts remain murky. Police reports from the time do not corroborate many of the supernatural claims. No photographic evidence exists. And while several investigators visited the home, none could offer concrete proof. Yet the house's legend only grew. Tourists flocked to see it. Locals avoided it. The iconic windows were eventually remodeled to break the association. But still, people whispered. The Lutz family never lived in the same house again. They scattered, emotionally, physically. Whatever happened in that house, real or imagined, left a mark that never fully faded. Was it a haunting? A psychological breakdown? A carefully orchestrated hoax? The lines between fear and fiction blur easily in the dark. But what's certain is this. Once a house becomes a story, especially a story soaked in blood, it never truly becomes just a house again. And something about Amityville still doesn't sit right.